Hey, everybody, welcome to Unlock Your Retirement. And today we're going to be unlocking the new retirement reality. We talked a little bit about that in a previous show, but we're going to dig a little deeper into it today with my wonderful co-host, Tony. Hey, man, how you doing, boss?
Oh, you're the boss. I'm just along for the ride, Bruce. I am so good today. I love the holiday season. I know not everybody gets excited because there's a lot going on. I know it can be stressful for some, but I've just had a good one so far and keeping busy right up until then and looking forward to a little time off around the holidays. How about you? How have you been?
Yeah, no, I'm great. Things are good. We've got it was funny. I talked to a young lady today at the Department of Transportation, and she said, I haven't even started yet. And I went, oh my God, really? The
Oh,
clock's ticking.
no,
And
no.
but no, we've got wonderful things, and
Good.
Santa Claus has nice things for Lily and Bruce.
That's
I've been
nice.
in touch with the man in red, and yeah, it's. And have you seen the John Travolta Capital One with him as Santa
Oh,
Claus?
love that.
Oh my
Him
God.
walking down the street to that music
Yeah,
of Santa
yeah,
Claus. I mean, it's John Travolta is just like the king of cool. I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah,
vibe, I love that ad.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just like, finally we found something different, but yeah, for the holidays, that was pretty good. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. Well, and, we've got all our Christmas shopping done, and this is the earliest we feel like we're ready for Christmas, so that's good.
Yeah, and Tony has an amazing album collection, one of the most elite
Oh,
ones
yeah.
I've seen. So yeah, but
I
now
do.
let's talk about good things on the show today. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. So, you said we're going to talk about the new retirement reality. And I know that the world of retirement is everything changes, from taxes to markets to longevity. It shifts so fast. I mean, just like time goes by faster the older I get, it seems like retirement rules and things change. There's always something new, something different, something changing, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, and it's amazing to me, and I think probably the main key point of the day's show is that, really, as much as we think there is, or we'd like there to be something static, something that, it's kind of set it and forget it, it isn't that way anymore, and even more so than ever before. It's that's the crazy part of planning is, and I'm not trying to fault the consumer, but we talk in reality on this show,
Right.
is people, we've said it for many, many, many years. People will spend more time, and God knows I know how much work goes into it, planning a vacation. Okay, we're going to Mexico for a week, or the Caribbean, or Alaska, or a cruise, or whatever. They'll
Mhm.
spend more time with all that infrastructure. But if they're planning for the next 30 years of their life, and there's the potential for that now with longevity, oh yeah, let's get it done and sign off on it, check the box, and move along. Nothing to see here, and that's not the case. There's just so many things that have changed. So the new reality is change, and
Hmm.
and too many people have a plan that has been like a set it and forget it, or they haven't revisited it. And I think the worst case ones, and it's very hard to explain this to people right now with the way the markets are. I just saw that what they're looking at doing an offering on SpaceX at $1.2 trillion for the valuation of the company, and some of the things that Musk has talked about. My God, I mean, the guy. I still say, of all the people I've encountered on this planet, I think he's an alien. I really do. He's just the guy plays 3D chess while we're playing checkers.
Yeah, Andy's not normal. I mean, he's an odd duck, but he has all these incredibly future. He's thinking way out, like you said. He's a few moves ahead, it seems, right, in his mind, and he
Yeah, and
he comes up with all these different ideas.
I've got a lot of sharp engineer friends, and we talk about different things because I still have that engineering background. And what's very interesting is the one gentleman, he said, Bruce, he said, if you tie it all together, he said, every single thing he's doing is about going to Mars. And I went, oh, yeah. No, no, what do you mean? And he said, Well, he said, he's got, first of all, the biggest battery on the planet's in Australia. It's a Tesla battery. So they have the battery technology. He obviously has the rocket technology. He's got the satellite technology. Have you seen how they launch those Starlink satellites? The
Yes.
rocket goes up, it opens up almost like the space shuttle. And I said those little toy guns we had as a kid that shot those little plastic discs out. Well,
Yep.
it's like there goes a satellite, there goes a satellite, there goes a satellite.
Yep.
So, as they were talking about the valuation of SpaceX, this is such a great conversation for the new reality.
Yeah.
Um, he said, well, obviously one of the things we're looking at is we hear all this about these data farms that are out there now because they need it because of AI. And the biggest challenges are twofold. One is temperature. How do you keep all those computers and all that stuff cool? And two, where are you going to get the electricity to run all these data farms? Okay.
Right.
And he said, so he's changing the design of the Starlink satellite, making it a little more robust, and each one of them will be a data center, and they will be in
Wow.
space, so they will be cooled, and it's going to be solar powered, so they'll have power 24 hours a day in orbit. And it's like, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
like, holy cow. And then he's talking about this ridiculous speed to beam his Grok AI down to the planet, but also beam it the other direction to the moon and put manufacturing facilities on the moon.
Yeah.
And he'll certainly put a launch base there. I mean, the guy is just, it's cool. It's all the stuff we saw in books as children or even comics.
Right.
When
Yeah.
I saw his first rocket come back and land, because we always saw that, they went to another planet and it's like, they'd land.
Yeah.
So these are incredible times. But when it comes to your finances, we're in exactly the same kind of situation. Is that people, traditional retirement planning, and that's what's permeated across the 300,000 plus advisors across America. It's the same old thing they've been doing since I came in the business 40 years ago. Take a risk analysis. We're going to build a pie chart. Here's how much. Here's how we're going to control your risk by how we put pieces in the pie. You know, and so where they stop their version of retirement planning is really where elite wealth planning begins. And it's taking the planning to a whole different level for a whole different reason of purposes and cover a
Mm.
much larger spectrum of the things, the moving pieces that exist in your retirement.
Right. And Bruce, retirees today, obviously things are changing. They're facing higher inflation, higher healthcare costs, more volatility. So there's more risk in more directions than ever before, it seems, right?
Exactly. When you say the word risk, it's not just the investment risk. And that's where the conversation has always started and stopped.
Sure.
And the fact is, there are much more costly, expensive risks out there than what happens in the market.
Right.
Obviously the biggest one for most retirees is taxes,
Sure.
and if you can reduce somebody's, and I'm not talking about a 1 year bump in their taxes, but if you can reduce their taxes long term over the period of their retirement, and say you could save them $250,000, we have a saying at WealthCare, every extra $250,000 in your pocket counts. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so
the problem. It takes that to pay for healthcare nowadays. It's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, and that's the whole thing is unnecessarily paying taxes that otherwise can be legally avoided with legitimate planning. Um, that is a loss. It's just like, if the market crashed tomorrow and you saw 30% of your wealth, you had $1 million one day and you had 700,000 the next, you'd kind of go, wow, I lost $300,000. And we teach people, we say, look, that's the same as writing a check out for $300,000 out of your retirement account, and you're like, well, I wouldn't do that. Well, you just did because of how
Yeah.
much risk you took. But
So
then,
in a way, it's a silent threat that some people aren't thinking about, especially in retirement. They think, "Oh, I'm not going to have to worry about taxes because I'm no longer working." Right? They think I don't have all that earned income, so I don't need to worry about taxes. I'm going to be in a low tax bracket. But that's just not true, is it? Retirement taxes can be the biggest financial burden or threat someone can face. Right?
yeah, and we've been programmed to not pay attention to risk. It's
Mm.
like, oh, don't worry, it'll come back. I got news for you. You ever pay your taxes? That's not coming back.
No.
Your wealth disappears to Uncle Sam when you die, and nobody goes back to your kids and says, "Oh, hey, we're gonna refund that money that was paid in taxes to transfer that retirement account to you guys." Not gonna happen. Okay,
No.
so yeah, there's a lot. How do you get the most out of your retirement? And the fact is, you follow the same four key principles that wealthy people use to maximize their money. One is you minimize risk while still having the opportunity for growth. Warren Buffett, first rule of money, don't lose money. Second rule of money, see rule number one.
Don't
You
lose
know,
money.
so well, and that's the weirdest thing. Like when I was vice chairman of Investors Capital and I was working with people that had 5, 10, $20 million, they would be like, don't, I mean, I would get widows, and I'm not kidding. They would go like, don't you lose my money, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, well, there's because I had come from the broker world, the normal
Yeah.
financial planning world. Like, well, you got to take risk and you're going to lose some money if the market goes down. And they're like, no. And I started looking at their portfolios, and you'd be amazed. Wealthy people have tons of risk mitigation instruments in their portfolio because they don't have to work their portfolio as much if it didn't sink down hard in the first time whenever the market dropped. So that risk management is important. Tax management is a gold mine for people that pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And
Because
we do.
that's money earned, that's more money you keep in your pocket if you can minimize that tax burden. And I know that's a big one. Also, though, and it kind of ties in, but there's longevity risk. And I know
Yeah.
you've mentioned that briefly before, but that's a big part of this too. That's something that's changed, that we're talking about new retirement realities. That's something that's new because, 20 years ago, the life expectancy was not nearly what it is today, or 40 years ago. Now, life expectancy, it keeps going up and up, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, breakthroughs in medical healthcare, all of these different things. And the reality is that for most people, when a retirement plan is built, and I hate to say this, but I think advisors are guilty of not looking at a long-term management plan that's going to require effort and going to require work over time. I think they are just as much on board with set it and forget it. Hey, I picked up a new client. I'm getting paid, whatever. I did the plan one time, and I'll buy them coffee once a year and say Merry Christmas or whatever. But the reality is that it needs to be managed over time because when you retire at 65, the numbers look good to everybody. But there are inflation, there is rising healthcare costs, there are unplanned expenses. And so you get to 75 and it's horrific. It doesn't look good, but you're probably not at the alarmist point yet, but you're kind of going, wow, man, the money does not go near as far as it used to. Especially if you're on a level income. You can take 4% of your retirement for income. Well, that's a level income projection. That's not the guardrail approach we use, which says, look, if we're doing our job, our goal is to give you a pay raise every 2 years in whatever you're doing. So you start at 65, you get to be 85, the people are going, no, this
Yeah.
this isn't working. This isn't working. And we have meetings with those 80 and 85 years. We have 80, 85-year old people that come to us and say, hey, I had a plan, it's not working. What do we do now? And you look and go, well, you've consumed, so in addition to your gains, you've consumed 30, 40% of the wealth you had back then. So we've got to be a little tighter on how we do things here. Um, so the sooner you get started and apply elite wealth strategies as opposed to the traditional and elevated approach to your wealth management, you're going to be better off. And that's, the more time you have, to harvest and find other opportunities to keep more of that money working for you and benefiting you and your family. And that is our answer to the new retirement reality, which is things costing more and unplanned expenses like higher health care and such.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Again, keep in mind inflation, higher cost healthcare, taxes, longevity risk. If you live 30 years in retirement, used to be people 5 years, 10 years in retirement when Social Security and these things first came about. It's not your grandfather's retirement plan anymore. That's for sure, because people are living 20, 30 years easy in retirement. And boy, if you're going to be retired 30 years, you better have a pretty good plan and a pretty good savings. And you need to be working with somebody. I'm not going to name names, Bruce Smith, but you need to be working with some some good people there. And I just think that's so important. Now, before we go on, let's let our listeners know, Bruce, how they can get a hold of you if they want to set up a no charge, no obligation consultation with your team there at WealthKare.
Yep. You call Tony's favorite number of all the numbers he ever talks about on the radio. He loves
Yep.
this number, 888-888-5601. 888-888-5601. Give us a call, set up a conversation, a 20-minute complimentary discovery call. We do them all day long with people. And we find some people we can help, some people we can't. Depends on what you're looking for, but we do comprehensive planning. If you're just looking to say, hey, what's the next hot investment? Or, hey, I'm thinking about trying this with $10,000. That's not what we're about. We're about looking at all the pieces and dealing with factual numbers, not guesstimations, and saying, okay, how do we build a plan that can unlock massive additional value for you? And we're going to talk we're going to talk later in the show. We've made an upgrade to discoverunlock.com since we last talked. But you can go on the web to discoverunlock.com and you can set up your complimentary 20-minute conversation there. But we have an little extra value gift we're going to talk about later in the show in that arena. So visit us at discoverunlock.com or give us a call at 888-888-5601.
All right. So we've been talking about what's really different in retirement today, and you touched a bit on retirement taxes, the silent threat. What about lifestyle and purpose? There's a retirement challenge there that I don't think a lot of financial advisors are focused on just the financial side, but it ties in with lifestyle and purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you said a little bit ago, you talk about, 30 years in retirement. Okay, that's fine. But on a very, very, very minuscule amount, I've seen, probably I can count them on one hand, the number of clients we've worked with long term that I can tell you that they are as active at 90 as they were at 60. And we have a couple. I'm not going to
Sure.
lie. I mean, we
Yeah.
have some really, really, real wow.
Yeah. I
That's
mean,
my
they're
goal.
out there, but it's very, very rare. Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to one guy, he's 85 and he skis. He loves winter
It's
skiing and goes
crazy.
to the mountains
Yeah.
and does his thing, man. He
My
runs the flat
grandfather drove
tire.
his truck and did farming until he was 100.
We met
100
with one
years old.
gentleman, he may even be listening, but he came into the office, he was 86. And I was amazed. He engineer, went to work every day, super smart guy. We had talked about a lot of cool things.
Mhm.
And then he was telling me his mother was 106 and still driving. And I'm
That's
like, wow.
crazy.
I mean, you talk about having good genes.
Yeah. It's
But so my
really good.
point is that when you say about 30 years, something we build into our planning and we have these discussions with people is, let's build a plan that, is a little more front loaded as far as income, because that's when you're physically most able to do a lot of these things.
Sure.
And this time of year, and I think it's just the nature of the seasons. Um, I find that more people are sensitive to when do I want to really start doing those things that I will do in retirement, even if they're still working. We encourage them, look, take that vacation, don't sit at home, go west, go to Yellowstone. Oh my God, we had a gentleman that went out to the is it Crater National Park? Do you know where I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And it was so funny. He had a shirt and it had a picture of the crater and the visitor center that's on the edge of the crater, and it said, "My God, how lucky were the people in that house that crater missed them." That has to be one of the traveling you know,
Oh, that's
traveling
hilarious.
oh my god, that
I've
was
always wanted
hilarious.
to see that big meteor crater.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, just weren't these people the luckiest people on the planet that that meteor just missed their place? And it's like,
Right.
wow, what a great shirt.
Yeah,
So,
that's so
but,
funny.
yeah, so I mean, so the purpose part of it, and we talked last week on the show, and it's out there. We have a website, Get Your Purpose. We're not going to talk about it a lot today, but getyourpurpose.com, and it's a joint effort between us and the Center for Retirement Readiness, where you can get the entire Unlock Your Retirement kit from them,
Mhm.
which is everything about retirement that is not financial. And I mean, the people that have downloaded it, we had a couple listeners dropped us an email like, "Hey, I'm not a client of yours, but hey, I love this thing. Thank you very much for providing it." So there's no cost to it. There's no obligation. It's real simple. Just getyourpurpose.com,
All right.
because you don't just want financial, you want to have purpose in retirement. So we've got that covered. And sometimes the greatest value comes not from your financial plan. So
Yeah. Well, let's talk about strategies, and I know the Elite Wealth Network, strategic approach. Things can truly change for people once they start working with somebody like yourself and implementing some strategies. What do you have for us on this?
Well, the financial industry is great at teaching advisors and teaching salespeople, unfortunately, in many cases, to find the hot button. So
Right.
you talk to somebody about risk, and that doesn't really get them going. You talk to them about taxes, you talking about income. I'm pretty good there. And then you say something about legacy, like, well, when you're gone, this wealth, how much of it do you want to go to your family, and how much do you want it to go to the government? And all of a sudden, ding, ding, ding. Whoa, wait a minute. I want to talk about that. So, everybody, almost all these hot button discussions fall into one of those four categories: risk, income, taxes, or legacy. That's it. That covers the full spectrum. And when we talk with people, and they do, they'll tell us, hey, my primary concern is retirement income. My primary concern is taxes, whatever. But the reality is, you say, look, it's possible that you don't even know how great the impact is in one of these areas. And we've seen it time and time again, because we built a totally comprehensive plan and we look at all of those equally. We don't do it because it's a buzzword or a hot button. And they're like, oh my God, wow, I had no idea. Because all of these, while they're individual strategies, they mesh together and create compounded value. And that's what people don't understand. And when they sit down with us and we actually go through the planning process, and they're like, I've never had anybody, talk to me like this, do these things. You've really built something here. I've never seen anything like it. And it came out of, I mean, as I've been in hundreds and hundreds of high level, high advisor meetings across the country, where we sit around and basically we don't say, look for a hot button. We say, look, what's the best way to squeeze more juice out of the orange? And how do you help people get the maximum value out of their wealth? And that's a brain discussion I'm always welcome in and
Yeah.
enjoy. And it transmits to our clients as an elite wealth advisor compared to a traditional.
Yeah. So let our listeners know about your offer before we have to end this segment.
So, to get a hold of us, basically, we will build a plan for you. If you save $500,000 or more for your retirement, we will build our total plan, not a piece of a plan, not a mini plan. We'll build a full blown plan for you. And we're not going to charge you for it. We used to charge $5,000 for these plans. We stopped. He said, look, we trust you look, if you see significant value that wasn't in your existing planning, will you seriously consider using us as your future wealth manager going forward? And people are like, yeah, if you can do that, I'm on board. That's cool. So that eliminates the pressure in the sales process. But it starts with a 20-minute conversation to see if there's even a fit or a reason to work together by giving us a call at 888-888-5601 or go to discoverunlock.com. That's how we start the conversation and see where it leads us.
All right. And we'll be right back. Welcome to Unlock Your Retirement. I'm Tony Shore, your co host. I'm here with Bruce Smith from the WealthKare Investment Center. And a great first segment. We're talking about Well, a lot about the new retirement reality and really the fast paced changes. It's a fast paced world for planning for retirement. You've got to be able to move and make changes. It's not our grandfathers, it's not your grandparents' retirement situation where you get Social Security and a pension and a watch and you live the next 10 years in retirement and you're done. It's changed so much. We're going to continue this. What do you want to talk about next?
It was funny when you said about not your grandfather's retirement. I remember going to a race one time, a car race, and the one guy was driving an Oldsmobile. Which, I mean,
Right.
you don't hear that word anymore, Oldsmobile, right?
Right.
And it was a Oldsmobile body on a race car, but on the back it said "Not your father's Oldsmobile," and I thought that was hilarious. Big tires, big engine, loud. Goes fast. Not your father's Oldsmobile. Like, well,
Yep.
that's true. Um, so yeah, I what I would like to talk about, let's see, I'm thinking, it's probably smart for us to talk about, building a retirement that lasts, and
Yes.
of course my background previous to the financial industry many, many, many moons ago was nuclear engineering. I was on nuclear subs. I was at 3 Mile Island after it happened. I didn't do
Oh,
that. I was there to clean it up and the Peach Bottom station. But so if you kind of have that engineering bent and you want to build a retirement that's going to last, we've talked about longevity increases, the where I like to start with that is, ask yourself this question, how many people do you talk to that'll tell you that their retirement failed?
hmm.
And the answer is almost nobody. But
Right.
it's not that they don't fail. It's
Right.
that I have talked to those people, and
Hmm.
what you find out is they become reclusive. They basically aren't talking to anybody. They're not out in
Oh,
public. They're because they don't have any money. They're living on Social Security and eating beanie weenie. And it does happen. And a lot of times they'll blame themselves. Like, well, I took out too much money too quick, or this number didn't hit, or the market was ugly to me, or whatever.
right.
But the fact is, if you want to build a retirement that's going to last, you have to build in. You've got to build in real inflation. You've got to build in real events that occur, like long-term care scenarios, what have you, and say, what if? Because if you don't take those precautionary testing values, then it's a guess. At the end of the day, it's all a guess. I mean, it really is.
Right. It
But
really is.
but you wanna say, okay, we talk about, results in advanced planning where it's like, okay, instead of saying the market crashed and how much did I lose? Oh, I lost 30%. We can actually run that scenario and say, if the market crashes to this degree, it drops 30%, we're projecting you're gonna lose 6. And they're like, "Really?" Like, "Yeah, because we're using wealth preservation and we're using wealth protection strategies for the majority of the portfolio." And, so as we look at these things, when we run these scenarios, what will happen to my retirement income? I think it's poor advice and poor management for an advisor to, not give credence and value to whenever a client says, "Hey, I want to take $50,000 out of my retirement and do X, or I want to take $100,000 and go do this, or I want to do that." You've got to say, "Look, here's the impact of that." Instead of just saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I think you'll be okay." Because if they're wrong, the person that's going to pay the price is you, your spouse, and your family.
Yeah.
So we we're not trying to stop you from doing things, but we want to say let's be realistic about it. And when we
Sure.
have that risk discussion about the market, they're like, I appreciate the candor that you're taking this approach. So, if you're going to build a plan that's going to last, we've got to kind of throw the negatives at it and see what it looks like.
Yeah, market volatility is a big one, and the way you deal with it has changed so much over the years. I know I was just talking with somebody recently, Bruce, and I know the big thing used to just be 60/40. You're good.
60/40 plan,
Yeah,
yeah.
the old 60/40 rule, which is, and not saying it's necessarily a bad starting point for some people in some situations, but that means you want 60% can be in more risk or straight in stocks and 40% in bonds, and then you're covered. Well, those days are long gone, right? I mean, you can't just
Oh yeah.
rely on, yeah. I mean, you don't, that's back in the days when everybody was getting a pension and a gold watch when they retired and they weren't living in retirement that long. And,
Yep.
and the same with the 4% rule. I'll just draw 4% from my portfolios or my IRA and 401k and I'll be fine. But those days, those rules don't work anymore. Rules of
They're
thumb.
antiquated. They are, I don't see anybody running around driving a Model T, other than a parade.
Right.
I
Right.
don't see them on the
Right.
interstate for sure, so guess
Right.
what? Things have evolved.
Yeah.
I have, oh my God, we have a Ford Explorer that, my first one was an expedition I
Sure.
bought that did this. And, you get, once you're on an established highway, you go boop and you push the button and I sit there like this and the
Wow.
vehicle drives,
Yeah.
75 mile an hour cruise control set, and you're passing trucks and doing all this stuff. Somebody cuts in front of you, it slows down, and it'll even to the point where it'll full stop, and then once they get going, you can set it in traffic. Well,
Yeah.
our Explorer is the same way, and whoever thought that would happen? But guess what? It really does. I find that I'm physically and mentally more alert when I get to where I'm going because I wasn't so stressed getting there.
Yeah.
So everything has changed, and I want to think changed for the better for the most part. But we've got to evolve our planning, and there's lots of opportunities. Wealthy people, when I worked with wealthy people, when I was with Investors Capital, I remember meeting with people that had $5 million, and I'm like, well, what happened to your portfolio when the market went south? The market went south 30%. Well, how big of a hit did you take? And they're like, 2%. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, okay, yeah, but then now the market's been doing really well. How are you? Oh, I'm doing 14%. You're like, wait a minute. What do you mean the market tanked? You lost two, but now you're up 14% in the good market. And here they had investments, they had instruments available, but they were minimum investment, $500,000, $750,000. Sometimes you'd see a $300,000 minimum. And the average person doesn't get access to that, but wealthy people had it. Today, we find that guess what? The technology has allowed us to take those things and slice them into smaller pieces. And when I take somebody's portfolio and I say, look, I can build this in such a way that we guarantee protection on 40% of this portfolio. Market goes south, you're not going to lose anything there. And this other 20%, the market goes down more than 20, doesn't go down any more than 20%. You're protected. If it goes down more than 20%, you're going to lose 2, 3, 4, 5%. And they're like, wait a second, I've never heard of such a thing. And then you show them, and that's where it came from. It came from how wealthy people manage their money. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of risk abatement there. The tax planning, we can do projections, forward-looking tax structures now that you couldn't do 10 years ago. The technology has evolved, and we utilize it. We embrace it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the difference right there. And really, we're talking about the difference between certain financial services professionals or advisors, fiduciaries like yourself, versus other financial planners or financial advisors. There are planning gaps that a lot of people miss, especially individuals, but even financial professionals. And you pointed one out there. I mean, investment gaps, maybe the risk versus safety gap. A lot of people don't know how to properly manage that or set it up. So there are a lot of ways a plan can fall short, right? And that's where you come in.
Yeah, I mean, and if somebody says, like, we've had listeners, that have messaged us, called in, and said, okay, I've heard this, but how do I find one of these advisors like you're talking about? Because I've never seen anything like that. And I say, first of all, I said, you can figure it out yourself, because if you talk to somebody and they talk to you about risk. Basically, they build a plan that is actually showing you numbers and says, here's how we're mitigating risk. Here's how we're mitigating taxes. Here's how we're building an income structure of an increasing income plan. And here's how we protect your wealth from not going to Uncle Sam, but going to your family. And if they have all of those conversations as part of the planning, you're in the right wheelhouse. If all they say is, hey, you need to buy this product and we'll fix that problem. Hey, we'll reduce your risk by buying an annuity, or we hear that one a lot. So if they're just one-legged, I mean, take a chair, cut the three legs off, leave one there, and try to sit in it. I mean,
Yeah,
if
it's not going to
some of the
work.
some of these now there's some of these guys. I mean, they put the chair on their nose and they balance it. Yeah, there's one in a million that can do it, but it can be done, but it's not pleasant and it's not widespread. So,
Yeah.
and that's it. That's what separates an elite wealth advisor.
And
It takes different tools, different experience, different knowledge.
yeah, and a couple more things that I see separate you from others, and that our listeners and viewers out there want to look for in an advisor. Do they talk to you about how to maximize your Social Security?
Yeah.
Even though they're not going to directly profit off of maximizing your Social Security and they're not getting paid to do that, that should be part of the plan. Also, are they talking to you about enhanced planning, inheritance, estate planning? That has to play a part, especially when you're talking about taxes. Do they have a tax reduction roadmap for you? Do they talk about minimizing that tax burden? I mean, these are all shortfalls where most plans fall short, right? And distribution
Oh, that was pretty
sequencing.
good. These are shortfalls where most plans fall short. That was that
Yeah.
was Tony Shore,
See?
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Tony Shore. Yeah. Congratulations. That was good.
Shortfalls where most plans fall short.
Fall short
Yeah,
by Tony
I'm
Shore.
just, yeah, I'm
Great boy.
reiterating myself there or repeating myself, but it sounds good. But would you agree with that? I mean, am I missing anything there?
Sounds like the '70s. If it sounds good, do it.
Well, yeah, no, you don't want to go there,
Yeah,
not
I mean
back to the
you could
70s.
almost put it on a sticky pad and say, "Here's the 4 things that did they talk about all 4 of these things as part of their
Right.
planning? If not, you're in the wrong place." Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. And
And it's
uh
common sense. It's
yeah,
not this isn't like Bruce says or his firm is pushing their wares. This is common sense. Anywhere you go, this is what you have a right to expect this as a consumer, and most people don't get it.
yeah.
And we're glad that we offer it.
And that's the top 1% advisor difference, right, Bruce? I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's because you focus, it sounds like you focus on strategy, not on products, right?
No, absolutely not. Product is an afterthought. We find a product that fills a need within the plan, but the plan sets the criteria. It's
Right.
not the other way around of, hey, we need if you buy this product, here's all the benefits of it. No, it doesn't. I mean, that's like these drug commercials. My God,
Oh,
we're polluted with them. And what do? They give you their disclaimer, and you're like, oh my God, if that's what's going to happen to me, is it really worth taking this thing?
right.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
these are incredible times.
Yeah, they are. They are incredible times. Well, I think this is a really, really important discussion. And we already talked a little bit about retirement tax efficiency. But if we did a deep dive, and I know you've touched on this in other shows, but I don't know if you mentioned RMDs, IRMA. Uh, a big question I have for you, Bruce, in this area, and this is why I want to go back to taxes briefly here. And this is part of the new retirement plan because this is something that seems like it's changing or people are unsure about, and that's Social Security taxation. And I don't
Mhm.
mean the taxes that are taken out of your paycheck that
No.
go toward the social paying for Social Security. I'm talking about once you retire and file for Social Security, that is retirement income, and that's no matter how wealthy you are, that's still the basis of retirement income planning because it's a known factor. You're going to start there because pretty much everybody's going to have some type of Social Security. Figuring out what that is, but does that go toward my earned income each year with the money I'm pulling out of my traditional IRA to put me in a higher tax bracket? How does that work?
Yeah, and the thing is, it has changed over time. I
Yeah,
will say that when you have the Social Security taxation discussion with somebody, probably 30 to 40% of the people are falsely under the impression that Social Security is not taxable. We hear that
right.
all the time.
I
Well,
was
wait,
one
wait a
of
minute.
those people.
I
I
didn't
was
think
one
that
of
was
those people
taxable. And the fact is, for
at one
many, many
point.
years from its inception, it was not taxable. And
Right.
then finally one day, the wonderful bean counters of Washington said, "Oh, well, okay, we made a mistake." And this is their reasoning. There is a reason for it. Is yes, you paid tax on the Social Security contributions you put in, but the employer never paid tax on theirs. So we need you to pay that share so things are equitable. So I mean, and who wants to get behind that? Not me, you know. And so they would tax up to 50% of your retirement, 50% of your Social Security. And you're kind of like, well, okay, it was palatable. It wasn't good, but it was palatable. And then it went up to 85%. You know, so now, you know, and you know, you don't have that pension where it's just here's a number, that's it. It's really throttling, you know, where you're taking resources from. You know, you're taking a withdrawal. We've had people that are pretty frugal with their income stream. And of course, they took out an extra 20 grand because they were buying something or going on a trip or something for the grandkids or helping out a child or whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, you know, what happened here? It's also the problematic thing we see when people retire, they're drawing Social Security, and all of a sudden they find that they owe money, and they're like, no, I had them take money out of my retirement check coming out of my 401k or my IRA. It's like, yeah, but you didn't have anything withheld on Social Security. Well, I didn't think I had to. You know, so it is a speed bump in the road, and if somebody's not building that calculation in there and showing that, then you know you get caught surprised. And where do you get the money to pay that additional tax? Out of the retirement account, which basically starts to build the snowball effect. I need
Yeah.
more money to pay the tax, so I take a bigger chunk. Oh, I got to pay tax on that too. Now I escalate the tax demon. Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it can be taxed. So that's important to note. I used to think I didn't think Social Security was taxed. I'm like, why would they tax that? I mean, I was nowhere near retirement age, so that's fortunate. And I learned before I was 50 that it would be, so I'm planning for that, obviously. And we've talked about it, but Bruce, I think it's so important to point out. And RMDs, required minimum distributions. Of course, if you work with a really good, trusted financial services professional, you really don't have to worry about RMDs, do you? Because it's taken care of for you, or
Well,
how does that work?
it depends on where your accounts are. You know, that's something I just had a call earlier today with a client, and you know, because it is that time of year, and they're like, you know, oh hey, I have this account over here at the bank. It's an IRA. I didn't take anything out of that. Do I have to? And it's like, we calculated your RMD based on all the accounts you have with us. You know, you didn't tell us about that account, so we've got to put it back into the calculation. And yeah, you need to hustle over there
Mhm.
and get some coffee money out of there. You know, you need to take a
Right.
call. You know, and you know, I mean, because you know, you said about people don't know these things. You know, it's funny. Bruce the Fifth, he has a police uniform now that he puts on, and he's got a set of handcuffs, and he's got Smith on it. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
he likes going after him and his Spider-Man and stuff. They're going after the bad guys.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. And so you know, people grow up and they do cops and robbers, cowboys and
Sure.
Indians, whatever. And I'm dating myself, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
they don't say, you know, hey, let's be a tax advisor or financial planner. You know, I never played that game or seen my grandkids playing that game. So, you know, yeah, we're not used to that. It's kind of a new thing. But it's a great rewarding field. I love what I do. My cousin, my second cousin, is actually taking his investment advisor law exam and
Wow.
going to help us with the firm. So that's pretty exciting
Impressive.
stuff. Yeah, things are happening. So, but I'm anxious to talk about the upgrade we did to kind of help people out there with the Discover Unlock too. So yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and you mentioned that. Let's talk about that briefly before we continue here. I know if our listeners or viewers are out there and they have $500,000 or more in retirement savings or saved up or invested, that all they need to do is call you or go to discoverunlock.com to set up that consultation. Get a second opinion on where you're at. Make sure you're not missing any of these things or set up to make costly mistakes. Make sure you have future tax planning, everything maximized, tax burdens minimized. And Bruce, the number we like to give out, I'll give it out this time because I love saying it, 888 888 5601. Yeah, that's 6 8s in a row. It's easy to dial. 888-888-5601. All right. Well, let's continue this discussion. The new retirement reality, and it really is a new reality. And my wife said something to me, Bruce, it's perfect for the show, and this is basically what she was talking about. I've been having to handle things for my parents because they're in their 80s, not doing well. They both have Parkinson's, they have cognitive issues. And I'm not saying that so people feel sorry for me. I'm an only child, so it's all on me, and it's not easy. It can be stressful, but you know what? Knowing what I put those people through as a child, I have no problem. Hyperactive Tony, I have no problem. It's this is payback. This is what I don't mind. But I will tell you, my wife's seen me with my head in my hands at the table, and I'm looking through Medicare, Social Security, trying to deal with taxes, they live in Minnesota, which is very unfortunate when it comes to state taxes because
Yes.
they're high, they're convoluted, and all the changes that constantly happen with those things. And, investment, do they have insurance here? Okay, what does this do? When does that renew? Oh, they had CDs and it re-upped. People don't realize bank CDs when they hit the end of their time period. Dad got a great deal. He was all excited because he got a great deal on a 19-month or a 17-month. It's usually odd numbers to throw you off. But you get one notice and then it auto renews once it hits if you don't take it out or move it or change it. And then, of course, is the interest rate going to be the same or higher when it renews as that special? No, it's going to go lower, so he's going to make less. And I didn't know that money was hit the interest earned on a CD at the end of the year. It doesn't matter if it's only been in there 3 months or 18 months. At the end of each year, they're going to tax him. He gets a 1099. So I'm sorting through all this, and my wife goes, how does a 70-year-old person these days, or 75, because, we slow down a bit, technology, we don't stay up on things. How does somebody keep up with all this and know what to do? How would somebody know to do this? Like, to do this because you know Bruce Smith personally. That's what she says. You know Bruce Smith personally, Tony. So, but what would we do if we didn't know Bruce Smith? How would the normal person figure all this out? RMDs, Social Security maximization. And unfortunately, I said, I'll tell you how. Like, our neighbor, because all his coworkers, they signed up for Social Security and filed at 62 because he was told that's when I'm going to get more checks. And this guy's a smart guy, but he was still working full time, making over 6 figures. So he had filed at 62, locked in the lowest amount. Plus, he didn't see that money because they withhold it if you make too much money.
Yeah.
So all of those things we're talking about today, that's the new retirement reality. And it just wasn't that complicated in the 60s, 70s, and even 80s. It's
the other part that goes with that is, and I bet you've never heard another person talk about this, and it's something so plain, is everybody had pencils, paper, and paper statements. You could actually see it and go, oh, okay, and take notes. That's all gone, and nowadays, I mean, we have clients, unfortunately, that die. And they have a heck of a time getting, that's one thing. If you have an electronic device, a trust, if you've got an iPhone or an Android or whatever, you really need to go in there and do the setup and list your spouse as a trusted person that can get access to it. Because we've had clients go through absolute HE double hockey sticks over, well, they logged into all their accounts and all their passwords and the banking and the IRA and all that stuff's in here. Crazy. Now, if they're clients of ours, we fix it. But if they've got Vanguard or whatever, they don't have any idea. Oh, what do I do now? So the world, that's the new reality. That's part of the game. So
yeah. I didn't mean to go off on a rant there, but it is. She always says, "How does the average person know any of this?"
It really is. It's 100 times harder than it used to be. The responsibility has been transferred from simplicity to the consumer, and it's absolutely a nightmare.
Yeah. And that's where you come in. I mean, to avoid, and we're not talking about just minor mistake. Oh, it's the big deal. I do this. Well, you can make mistakes that cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars if you don't do
Yep.
something correct. I mean,
Sure.
with taxes or with Social Security, or when you file over the course of your retirement, that stuff adds up, doesn't it?
Yep. Oh yeah, it does. And that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
But you brought up the Discover Unlock. So the thing we've changed there is now because of so many people saying, well, how do I find an advisor like this? Or how do I even know what I'm looking for?
Yeah.
So if you go to discoverunlock.com now, there's actually a fact finder there that you answer. It takes you less than 5 minutes to go through it. But the neat part is, as soon as you are done, and it's asking just, there's no personal information. It's very generic. It's basically, you know, if you had a plan that could significantly reduce your taxes during your retirement lifetime, would you want that? Yes or no? And then the next question is, do you currently have a plan that's addressing that issue that is going to reduce your taxes? Yes, or most of them are yes or no questions. Very simple. But as soon as you are done, it will email you a comprehensive report of what you just answered. It's going to have a comparison chart based on your answers, and that's yours. You don't, I mean, even if you don't talk to somebody, schedule with us, whatever, that's yours. So we've enhanced the Discover Unlock experience to where you're able to kind of come up with your own comparison just of what does elite planning look like? And am I getting all those benefits from what I'm doing now? And you answer it yourself. Nobody's going to call you or bug you. It's very simplistic. So discoverunlock.com, or give us a call to schedule a time, 888-888-5601. Yeah.
That's right. And I think for people who have, especially for people who have saved like $500,000 or more for retirement, that's where your strategies and what you do there at WealthKare really deliver the greatest value. And I think that is so important, Bruce. Right now is a window of opportunity before tax laws change and markets shift again. We're in this window where, hey, we're still in a low tax bracket. We've still seen some record highs in the markets. Get a strategy in place. Take advantage of that. Get a second opinion on where you're at, and where it might be headed. And I know you're offering that a complimentary consultation with an elite wealth advisor there. I want to reiterate, they can call 888-888-5601. Or, like you said, the best thing to do, if you can, is just go to discoverunlock.com, because they can take that brief questionnaire. They can set up that appointment. They can get the report. I think that's fantastic. And again, there's no cost there to do that at discoverunlock.com. Great show today, Bruce. We're out of time. And that does it for today's episode of Unlock Your Retirement with our host, Bruce Smith.
Take care, everybody.